And, well, just like that, Andor ended with more whimper than bang. But the bang comes later, in Rogue One and all that. From Death Star. But it was always this darker version of Star Wars, and even more tragic if we could follow that, since really you look at the 6 original Star Wars films, it's it's a tale of tragedy overall for Anakin Skywalker and the like. But that's all well understood. If you haven't figured that out by now, what are you doing still watching it? It's different. It's not the same thing. And there are certain aesthetics that I think it needed to make some amount of attachment to the overall universe of Star Wars that it didn't do. They did a little better on that this time around in season 2 than they did in the first season. But comparing the two, season 1 is still, narratively speaking, the superior of them. There's some great moments, some pretty good episodes, and cool scenes, but so much padding and filler when they needed to use that time for character development of characters that were performed very well by the actors, but then suddenly shoehorned in the ultimate outcome of their characters. Most notably in Serial, there's a lot of praise for that, but the groundwork that people are projecting onto it and filling out the script for in your heads it's not really there. They just jump ahead and they put him there. There's not enough detail to earn that scene, and that's a failing. And especially when, holy crap, they had time to do it. They wasted it on this silly jungle adventure and all this sort of thing. I don't understand any of that. And then other episodes that were just very slow, when a couple of minutes could have wrapped up what those episodes had achieved. So very unfortunate. But the latter part of the season is better. There's a lot more activity, and well, albeit payoffs not well arrived at, but nevertheless there. And then finally, the droid shows up. And then, of course, what does he do? He immediately chews up the scenery. He steals it, and he's great. And I just would have been a far more successful show if the droid had been there from the beginning. I mean, maybe not the first episode or season 1 or something like that, but once Andor encounters the droid, and because, hey, if we reprogram, this would be very useful. And he becomes his co-pilot and buddy and all that sort of thing, and it's this difficult relationship, but it works. It just immediately, it's already in place, which steals the show for Rogue One. There's a lot of cool elements for Rogue One, and a lot of that is attachment to the original film and so on and so forth. But for standing on its own, that the droid really steals the show. And why not? It's great. And such what would have been the case here, I think, is just seeing him in there. And, of course, he solves a lot of problems they get themselves into. So, I can understand that. But you got to figure that out. But nevertheless, all I can do is like, wow, this is so cool and great. If only that had been a part of the overall show. It just didn't happen. And more to the point, the show's called Andor. And Andor, he's a significant character, but he's not the main character. There's elements of his story that are never resolved. I mean, his mysterious sister, he's just like, well, you just have to move on. You'll never meet her again unless, I don't know, could Clea have been his long-lost sister? I suppose. I don't know. But then again, you get into that, this is another Luke and Leia thing, Yeah, sure, why not? The Force works in mysterious ways and what have you. Luthen being the most interesting character out of this story. The payoff, well, people had their theories, and yeah, it wasn't that. But there is a nice send-off for him and his relationship to his assistant. Clea and all that. And it's a nice little episode, gives his backstory and the development there, and rounds it out. And also pretty much rounds out her character as well, because she was being really, argumentative with him and insulting and stuff like that, and exasperated and so on and so forth. And then kind of earns it all in this background that you understand that this was a father-daughter thing that happened. And it was of course, two very broken people that found each other and developed this relationship with the same goal in mind of the rebellion, that he's basically the architect for it, and setting up these different people, recruiting people that he felt could do the job. Such was the case with Andor himself. And of course, the things he did, which went against who he really was. You see who he is in the backstory. So that's well handled for the character. It would have been cool to see a little more, but the story is what it is. And of course, at the end, you got Andor. He's fully formed and everything. He was kind of there already. For the most part, the relationship with his girlfriend and wife, boy, they didn't write that well. And I mean, there's a scene at the end, I guess it would be too much spoiling for it, that gives some explanation for her motives. And I guess I could, but I'm like, it's just all of a sudden, because I would have anticipated that for Andor, because she was on this revenge bent, and that it's the sort of thing that might not have worked out too well for her and got her killed and this sort of thing. And then he's even more colder and darker than he was, and that brings him to the Andor you meet in Rogue One. And then of course, he meets Jyn Erso, and at the end it's looking like, if only they could have lived, they might have gotten together and all this sort of stuff. Well, he's still hoping to get back to his wife. So, that kind of, it's a bit of a rewrite, albeit a small one, but nevertheless. So, all in all, a lot of great things about it. And even with a more flawed season than the first one, there's still some good stuff there that, for the most part, kind of outweighs the bad. Not as much as the last one, but the droid in and of himself, just what a great character. But still, it just sticks in my craw. It's like, how could you miss that? You could have had this great rollicking adventure alongside the dark elements of the story, of the lengths they had to go in order to resist the Empire, But they didn't do that. And so, it's just too bad. But in the end, at the state of affairs for Star Wars now, it really doesn't matter. Because even if Andor was really excellent and firing on all cylinders, it's not the show that was ever going to save it. And a show wouldn't. It can sort of help, but the damage done is so severe. And they kept doing more damage that it's too late. So that's too bad, but that's how they charted the path for Disney Star Wars. So anyway, more of an effort, a more intelligent approach, at least, than previous efforts. Basically, you've got 2 seasons of Mandalorian. Poor skeleton crew that no one saw. It's a cute little show. And then you've got Andor. And that's it. So some really good high points here. But overall, does it justify the expense necessary to produce shows like this, considering the terrible health, if you can even call it that at this point, of the overall brand of Star Wars? And sorry, but I don't see it. And I don't think there's any saving it.